You know what? I'm betting those people who freaked out and sold at $2.74 are probably face palming right now. Seriously, where's the backbone, people? Look at us cruising at $3.04. Okay, sure. There's no crystal ball guarantee that what we just saw, which totally screams retest to me, was absolutely the bottom. But get this. I'm about to show you why a whole bunch of chart analysts are feeling really good about this being it. They think that was probably the bottom for the market, XRP included. And here we are, hanging out comfortably above $3, actually $3.04 as I'm talking to you. Just a few hours ago when I started recording this, we hit $3.09. Some folks got liquidated, but man, what a ride for us XRP holders. I'm going to walk you through what several chart analysts are saying, including some really sharp XRP chart experts. One of them straight up says we're just getting warmed up, and honestly, I'm right there with him. I actually think most of the price action XRP is going to see this cycle is still ahead of us. Maybe we've only seen a tiny slice of what's coming, and here's why I think that. I'm not trying to call exact prices here, but there's actually some history behind this thinking. Look at the last two market cycles. XRP had one big pump, then it basically moved sideways for about 6 months, and then bam, second major pump. It took a while to play out, but when it did, that second pump was absolutely massive compared to the first one in dollar terms. I'm talking way, way bigger. It made the first pump look like pocket change. So why wouldn't we see something similar this time around? I mean, what's the alternative here? XRP barely doubles from here and tops out at what, $5, maybe $6 or $6.50? I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I'll be the first to admit that, but it just seems hard to believe. You know, XRP spent the better part of a decade just sitting there consolidating. Now it finally has legal clarity. It's not being held back artificially anymore. And after all that waiting, it hits a few all-time highs, just barely above where it was almost 10 years ago, and then just calls it quits. Like, okay, I'm done here. That's enough for me. Yeah, I seriously doubt that. I really do. But before I keep going, let me be super clear about something. I don't have any financial background whatsoever. I'm not giving you financial advice, and you definitely shouldn't buy or sell anything based on what I'm saying here. Recording this on August 4th, 2025. Seriously, where did this year go? It's been absolutely crazy. I'm thinking this second half we're in now is going to have way more fireworks than what we saw in the first half. We had so much sideways action in 2025 after that insane run up at the end of 2024. Anyway, XRP is chilling at $3.04 right now. Look at this 24-hour chart. Gorgeous stuff right here. $3. That's a massive bounce from $2.74 just the other day. We went from $2.74 straight up to $3.09. Ouch for the panic sellers, but hey, that's on them. Not going to sugarcoat it. Bitcoin's looking solid too at $114,781. Hit its 24-hour peak a few hours ago, right alongside XRP at $115,738. All this after climbing back from those lows around 112K, just a hair above that level. So Bob Lucas, this chart analyst with 347,000 followers, dropped this gem. In late stage bull markets, you really don't want to stay bearish too long after a decent sell-off. That's exactly what we just saw play out. This is just the name of the game, which is why when everything was crashing and burning the other day, I was like, come on, people. This isn't sticking around. It's totally normal, happens all the time in crypto, even in these late stage bull markets. Yeah, even when we're near the end of these runs, we still get these wild swings. Nothing shocking here at all. Standard operating procedure. Made zero sense to panic sell or get all emotional about it. And we barely had to wait, did we? Boom, right back up we go. Tons of analysts are feeling really confident this was our bottom. Oh, and check this out. See the CNBC video on your screen? That's Tom Lee right there. He's constantly on CNBC doing his thing. Plus, he runs his own investment firm. This guy's track record is pretty damn solid. Look, nobody's right 100% of the time. I always say that, but his accuracy rate is really impressive. And here's the kicker. He thinks the S&P 500 is going to smash through multiple new all-time highs this month. So if that's actually going to play out, then maybe those analysts calling for XRP to absolutely explode this month might be onto something. Look, nobody can nail the timing on this stuff consistently. I'm always reminding people of that. But since we're in the late stages of this bull run, it's not crazy to think something like that could happen. I think you're going to see people getting more and more comfortable taking risks, not just in the stock market, but especially with alts. And it's coming, folks. We're about to see a full-blown alt season. I honestly don't think we're that far off from it. Just looking at the historical patterns, we're really close. History has this funny way of repeating itself, you know? If Tom Lee's right about what he's saying with the S&P 500, that's actually perfect because it all lines up together. That's what we call confluence. Here's what chart analyst Javon Marks posted. This is looking at Bitcoin, and he said Bitcoin's climbing right off that retest. He thinks this could kick off a run that takes us way beyond $135,000. And listen, I'm just showing you a handful of examples here, but there are tons of analysts out there all saying the same thing about what we just went through these past few days. It was just a retest, plain and simple. The market shot up, came back down to check that level. No biggie. Now it's ready to keep charging higher. Here's what Mustache Bitcoin posted. He's looking at this Bitcoin chart and saying, what if this correction was just a retest? Bitcoin apparently just broke out of an inverse head and shoulders that's been cooking for 7 months. Where's he think it's headed? 155K to 161K. He's got that classic line, dips are for buying, in his opinion. And honestly, that's the same tune you'll hear from pretty much any analyst who's been in this space longer than 5 minutes. This whole thing was just a chance for people to load up more if they wanted to increase their bags. That's it. Nothing more dramatic than that. Man, if Bitcoin actually climbs that high, and look, I'm not making any predictions here. I'll tell you straight up, I don't know what's going to happen. Predictions aren't my thing because that would just be fake. I mean, I'm totally fine saying what I think could realistically happen. We all have our opinions, right? I've got mine, you've got yours. But here's what keeps bouncing around in my head. If Bitcoin really does hit those insane numbers, how on earth does XRP not get into double digits? Like seriously, how does that not happen? There'd be so much cash flowing through the entire crypto ecosystem, and you're going to tell me that tons of it doesn't pour into XRP after all that artificial suppression? No way I'm buying that. And with how incredibly strong XRP's been since the election, come on. It would be pretty wild if it didn't happen when Bitcoin's flying that high. Here's what the blockchain backer posted back on July 11th, and then I'll show you his latest update. So almost a month ago, he was breaking down Bitcoin and said his best estimate was that we'd eventually see some kind of backtest for Bitcoin. After that, the crazy parabolic euphoria kicks in. He wasn't totally sure how alts would handle that pullback or whether they just keep cruising until the parabolic phase hits. But he wrapped it up with parabola fun. So on July 11th, Bitcoin was hanging around 118,000. But check out his projection on this chart. For those watching, he thought we might see a dip down near 112K. That was his expectation. Then Bitcoin would just go absolutely nuts to the upside.
See how close we are now.
Just a few weeks later, and we are practically there. I'm telling you, folks. Here's what's cool about this. During bear markets, you're literally sitting around for years waiting for anything exciting to happen. But when you're in the final stretch of a bull market, you don't wait long at all, and that's beautiful. We really don't have to. The longest stretches of waiting we had to deal with, we've basically already survived. Like that sideways grinding for XRP, that was pretty much the worst of it. Could you even imagine having to wait longer than that when we're this close to the end of a bull cycle? I just don't think it happens. There's zero historical precedent for that kind of thing. Definitely not with XRP. So he actually reposted that this morning and wrote, right on the button of $112,000, the peak for May 22nd. We'll see if that was good enough for a back test. He's not guaranteeing anything, but he thinks there's a solid chance that what we just witnessed was actually our local bottom. From here, we just rocket up and eventually hit that parabola fun zone. All good things in time, right? Look, any honest analyst will tell you, yeah, sure, it's possible we could dip lower and test some more levels, maybe even hit some deeper lows. It's possible. But I'm not seeing analysts who think that's the most likely scenario right now, just putting that out there. Here's what chart analyst Dom dropped. He says there's this one chart that's keeping him really bullish for the next few months. Ethereum. It broke below a multi-year trend, then clawed its way back just months later, and now it's bumped into the same resistance 4 times over 500 days. He's saying he's never seen a macro top where the peak was a level that got tested 4 times like this. So for it to just roll over here without actually smashing through $4,000, that would be super weird compared to every single chart he's ever analyzed. Looking purely at Ethereum, it could still slide down to $3,100 and the whole structure would hold up just fine. This is actually fantastic news for us because history shows Ethereum is what gets alt season rolling. And check this out. Even if ETH hits $4,000, if XRP matched that market cap, we're looking at $8 XRP. You can reach those levels lightning fast. It's ridiculously easy, honestly. There's so much history of these kinds of moves in crypto, it's pretty clear stuff. So seeing ETH positioned like this is really encouraging. Think about it, everyone was writing it off as dead just months ago when it was at $1,400. Then it screamed up to around $3,800. It's pulled back a bit, but it's far from done. Sure, every time it hits that trend line, it gets a little weaker, but eventually it's going to punch through. This isn't the top. It would be completely nuts for Ethereum to not break out from here. Like that was really it for the whole bull run. That would mean this time is different, and we all know how that story ends. Not buying it for a second. As someone holding XRP, this setup actually has me pretty excited. Here's Dom's newest post. This one's all XRP, and he dropped it this morning. He's saying the bounce landed right where he expected it to, which is nice to see. He thinks we still need to push higher to get back into the safe zone. What he's looking for is $3 to flip back into support mode. Then any solid action above 312 would snap that downtrend and get the chart looking healthy again. Let's see what happens from here. Hopefully, by the time you're watching this, things haven't completely crashed and burned. No guarantees ever, of course, but it's looking pretty good right now as I'm recording this. Gotta love it. Here's chart analyst CW breaking down the XRP price chart. He's pointing out that XRP has 3 sell walls before we get back to the previous high. So yeah, we're going to hit some bumps along the way. He's calling out resistance around 320, then somewhere in that 335 to 340 range, and one more time close to 360. But here's the kicker. Not much resistance above that. So once we punch through to hit another all-time high, which honestly just feels inevitable at this point, we're flying in thin air. And when that happens, it's going to be absolutely insane. I really think we're heading into a face-melting season unlike anything we've seen in almost 10 years. It would be so strange to me if that didn't play out. XRP's not being held down anymore. The whole war on crypto thing is over. Everything's not just fine, it's incredible. Things are literally unfolding the way we used to fantasize about in our craziest dreams. That's actually our reality right now, especially with adoption. I mean, did anyone put 7 public companies holding XRP as treasury reserves on their 2025 bingo card? Because that's where we are. And some of these companies are actually putting XRP to work in their operations, using it for internal payments to boost efficiency and slash costs. This stuff is just mind-blowing. This is everything we always thought might happen someday, going back through most of the last decade. And boom, here we are living it. Here's what eGreg Crypto posted. He's saying XRP has to hold that $3.03 level on the 3-day chart. He's eyeing $3.12 as the next target. And if $3.30 can hold as support, then we start hunting for new all-time highs. He's clearly feeling pretty good about what's heading our way sooner rather than later. Dark Defender is crazy optimistic too. This chart analyst dropped, "You haven't seen anything yet," but for now, XRP is at $3.03. We are just starting. Now, obviously, XRP's already been going nuts, so it really depends what he means by just starting. But if he's talking about hitting that final crazy euphoric phase, yeah, that totally checks out. That's actually a smart way to think about it. I mean, XRP's definitely been on fire already since it was hanging out at 49 cents right before the election. So something's been cooking for sure. But if we're talking about that final act, the big crescendo, yeah, we're absolutely just getting warmed up. That's spot on. I completely agree with that take. So CW dropped another post saying XRP was squeezing short positions after those crazy leverage longs got wiped out. Let me check where the price was. Looking at the 24-hour chart, XRP was sitting around 297 when he shared this. He basically called it saying, if XRP hits $3.06, we're going to see some serious short liquidations. And wouldn't you know it, boom, we shot up to $3.09. This is exactly why you don't mess around with leverage, people. If you're some trading wizard, fine, do your thing. But for everyone else, come on, you're just asking for trouble. I keep seeing folks get absolutely wrecked playing with leverage. Like, we're talking about crypto here. You can already make thousands of % gains that are literally life-changing. But apparently that's not exciting enough. You need even more juice? Give me a break. This stuff drives me absolutely crazy. Chart analyst KC Trades just dropped some thoughts on XRP's recent moves, and honestly, it's pretty interesting stuff. So last week, he was really hoping that $3 low or that $3.82 pullback would be the bottom, where things turn around and we start heading back up. At first, it actually looked pretty good. XRP bounced off $3 and climbed to $3.31, which had everyone thinking, okay, maybe we're back in business. But here's the thing. That rally just didn't have the juice to break through. No real momentum, no follow through. When it got rejected at $3.31, that was like the first red flag saying, hey, maybe this bounce is just part of a bigger correction pattern. Once XRP lost that $3 support level, it drifted down to the next big spot, $2.75, which lines up with a key Fibonacci level. And you know what? So far, XRP is actually handling that level pretty well. It even managed to get back above $3, which is honestly a good sign. The key thing now is whether it can stay above $3 and start building some solid structure there. From a technical perspective, Casey says this isn't looking bearish just yet. That $2.75 low is still sitting above the previous high around $2.65. So the bigger uptrend is still alive and kicking. And here's the thing. Tons of analysts were calling that $2.60 to $2.65 level. I actually shared a bunch of them in the days before this happened. So it's pretty awesome that we've managed to stay above that zone. But here's where it gets interesting. She's seeing bullish divergences popping up everywhere, from the 15-minute charts all the way up to the 4-hour timeframes. That's basically multiple signals pointing in the same direction, which really backs up the idea that $2.75 might actually be the bottom of this whole correction. And honestly, that's the kind of positive vibe I'm hearing from pretty much every XRP chart analyst today. Looking forward, she says if we can properly break back above $3.21 with some real strength behind it, that would be a pretty solid confirmation that this correction is done and we're ready for the next leg up. If that happens, we're looking at a target zone between 460 and 480, with that big psychological $4 level likely being a major pit stop along the way. Bottom line, nothing's actually broken here, folks. The rally's still coming. She wraps it up perfectly. Yeah, we had to dial back our expectations a bit and recalibrate after dropping below $3, but the overall structure is still bullish. Those Fibonacci levels are holding up like they should, and momentum looks like it's starting to creep back in. You absolutely love to see it. And as I'm wrapping this up, XRP just hit $3.05. Love to see it. Things are looking pretty sweet in XRP land right now. Honestly, I can't think of a better time in history to be holding XRP. I really believe the best stuff is still coming. We're talking about some serious face melting action ahead. Yeah, we need to stay patient, but between you and me, I don't think we'll have to wait that long. If history has anything to say about it, and it usually does, we're getting close to the final stages of this whole rally. That's what I'm betting on anyway. Oh, and the usual disclaimer, I'm definitely not a financial advisor, so please don't go buying or selling anything just because of